So Michigan took USC to Pound Town last week. They had 290 rushing yards, and I've been watching college football for a very long time, but I've never seen a team engineer a 2-minute game-winning drive only running the football. They beat USC only throwing 12 passes in that game. They completed only 7 of them for 32 yards. The identity, the heart and soul of Michigan football is physicality, being able to run the football at will against whoever they play, and having outstanding defense. And that's what the Big Ten is known for. And there aren't any teams in the Big Ten that are as good as what Texas are, maybe Ohio State, but we got to see, because when you go against your rival, it doesn't matter if you have the talent disadvantage or the advantage, because rivalry games always tend to play out a little bit differently because they're not always judged off who has the better roster. It comes down to scheme, it comes down to culture, how your identity is built. And Michigan ran all over Ohio State last year. There's no reason why they can't run over the Buckeyes again. And I like Ohio State to win it all this year. I might be one of the few people in the nation that actually thinks the Buckeyes can win the Natty this season. A lot of people seem to be leaning in a lot of different directions, but with how dominant Michigan was against a really good USC defense, I believe that Deanne Lynn is going to end up being a head coach next year. His defense is going to be really good. It comes from an NFL background, and USC did improve up front. But Michigan is just a completely different animal when it comes to their dedication to the ground game, because that's their identity. And with the teams that they play coming up, Minnesota, University of Washington, Michigan State, Indiana, Northwestern, none of those teams are going to be able to hold a candlestick to Michigan up front. Michigan is going to be able to maul those teams on the ground. They're probably going to have like 300, 400 rushing yards in that game. You don't really need Alex Orji to complete any passes in that game. Where you are going to have some concerns at, though, is when you got to play Illinois on the road, because Illinois has a really good defense. They got a pretty good offensive line, too. They're one of the few teams that might be able to match your physicality. Ohio State, we got to wait and see. With Ohio State, it's just a mentality thing. Like, anytime they play Michigan, they just look like powder puff girls out there. And Oregon, I love your chances to beat Oregon this year, because Oregon got ran all over by Boise State and Ashton Gentry. You mean to tell me that Donovan Edwards, and the other running back that you got can't do the same thing? Michigan can go 10-2 this year. As absurd as it sounds, for a team that can't complete a pass damn near to save their life, to win 10 games in this day and age of college football with all these air raid offenses, all these offenses that are pass heavy, Michigan is old school. And a lot of these teams can't match Michigan's physicality, especially with what they have on the interior of their defensive line. So we already know about Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, the two outstanding defensive tackles that they have. But this Josiah Stewart dude, number 0 on their defense, I never heard of this dude until last week against USC when he was looking like freaking Lawrence Taylor out there. I mean, oh my goodness. Josiah Stewart was terrorizing USC's left tackle, Elijah Page, to the point after halftime they had to bench the brother because he just was too much. USC up front is just a sledgehammer. USC was trying to run the football on Michigan's defensive front, trying to run it up the middle, and they got denied every single time. Like Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant were in the backfield nearly damn near every play, or either the running backs for USC were running dead into their arms for tackles. They got a brick wall up front. And unless you truly have the kind of personnel that Texas has, when you can really move the football and push this defensive line around, you're not going to have a lot of success against Michigan. And even if you do have a dynamic offense like what USC has, you got to have a great offensive line to push around this defensive line. This is a really good D-line. This is a historically great D-line because you got two guys on this D-line that probably could be first-round picks next year. We know that Mason Graham is a lock for the first round. Kenneth Grant probably could be a late first round pick. And Josiah Stewart, he looks like a first round pick in my eyes as well. And you got outstanding secondary. Defense still can win a lot of ball games, people. The problem with Michigan is that what gave you so much success these past 2 years has been you can play complementary football. This year, you can only run the football, which means that you're not really getting any production out of your passing game. Even when you do get Colston Loveland back, it doesn't really matter that much if Alex Orji can't throw him some accurate balls. So is this level of play sustainable for Michigan to make it to the Big Ten championship? I believe that it is, because you're not really playing any team that looks like they're competent enough to be able to run the football against your defense, be able to protect their quarterback in the process, and who's going to be able to stop your rushing attack. We know that one thing about Michigan is that they're going to be able to keep games close with everybody that they play, unless you're just outright better than them and you got a Texas-level roster. You're going to be in a dogfight with this team. And as long as they can keep games close with how good their defense is, Wayne Martindale, their new defensive coordinator, is one of the best defensive coordinators of the past decade in football. Not just in college football, but mainly in the NFL, because he's well respected among NFL circles. He runs a very aggressive style defense. And we saw that, when this defense is playing at their best, man, it's damn near impossible to score on them. And USC, they got a few points on them in the second half, but for the most part, man, that defense held their own. And you got to be a historically great defense that carry your offense that can only run the football. And their style of play offensively benefits their defense, because when you can just run the football and you can have 7, 10-minute drives, your defense gets a lot of time to just, chill on the sideline, put their arms back and just chill out. And that's why I believe Michigan, as much as I counted them out going into this season, I kind of was wrong about them a little bit. I wrote this team off a little bit too early after they lost to Texas. Turns out Texas really just is that good, because USC is going to be a good team this year. I don't think they're a fluke team. It's just that with Michigan, you really have a hard time believing that a team that really can't throw, that can only run the football and has great defense, can sustain this. But it is sustainable. At their core, this is Michigan football, and isn't this what the Big Ten is all about? This is the Big Ten Conference, physicality, running the football down your throat. Like, there's no team that embodies the soul of the Big Ten and what it means to play Big Ten football better than Michigan. And some of the best teams that I remember from this conference, like those good Paul Chryst coach Wisconsin teams or the Brent Bielema Wisconsin teams, were run heavy. They had great running backs. When you think of this conference, you don't think of great quarterbacks. You think of good offensive linemen and great running backs. Jonathan Taylor, Melvin Gordon, Blake Corum, Saquon Barkley. So if you think that Michigan's style of play is not sustainable for them being able to repeat as Big Ten champions, you're kind of wrong, because they embody what it means to play Big Ten football. We're big up front, we're bigger than you, we're stronger than you, and we're going to show it by opposing our will up front for 4 quarters straight, just sledgehammering you. We're just going to hammer you, and we're going to make sure that after this game, you're sore as hell. You got to hit that ice tub, because you're going to get freaking sick and tired of tackling our bruising running backs, and you're going to get tired of us mauling you to the ground up front. And we got a defense that can frustrate you also. You just can't be a finesse team and find a way to out-scheme Michigan, because football still is won and lost by what you have in the trenches. And with their defensive line, that's a damn brick wall that they have. So I don't believe that Michigan's chances of winning the Big Ten should be counted out just yet. Everybody gets so attracted and enamored with flash. Who's the team that has the great receiver? Who's the team that has the great quarterback? This is Big Ten football, and this conference is completely different from any other conference in college football. Every conference has their own identity. And in the Big Ten, it doesn't matter if you don't have a good quarterback. All you need is a dominant ground game. There's been plenty of teams in this conference, like Iowa, that have won 10 games with no offense and just all defense and special teams. And that says a lot to what it means to be a member of this conference. It doesn't matter how much weaponry you have and how good of an offensive mind you got. You got to be physical, and you can't be soft in this conference. You got to be built for it tough when you're playing in the Big Ten, and USC found that out. They got a really harsh introduction into the Big Ten, and they got baptized in the name of the ground and pound of Michigan football. I got a lot of respect for this team now. I know a lot of people consider me a Michigan hater, but the more I watch this team, the more respect I just have for them, because I can respect the team that doesn't get away from their identity. I can respect the team that says, no matter the odds, no matter how hard it may be for us to win, we're still going to stay true to who we are. And that 2-minute drive that they had to get that touchdown, take the lead against USC, shows why Michigan has been the most dominant team in the Big Ten for the last 3 going on 4 years, because no matter what, you know they're going to run the football and you can't do anything about it because they're just downright different. They are psycho. Sharon Morris, an offensive line coach or a former offensive lineman. You know, this is a team that embodies what it means to play big boy football in the Big Ten Conference. And when your identity is true to what the identity of your conference is, you got a great chance to win it. This is Michigan's conference. Don't get it twisted. Ohio State has lost this team for the last couple of years. I can't remember the last time Ohio State beat Michigan. And, you know, for as good as what Ohio State is from a talent standpoint, you know, they had C.J. Stroud, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. They got all these great receivers that they produce, all these great quarterbacks, but they got nothing to show for it when they play Michigan, because at the end of the day, when it comes to can you get tough up front against our offensive line, can you get physical enough to run the football on our defense, Ohio State can't meet up to the test. They can't meet the standard that it takes to beat a team like this. You got to be cut different when you're playing Michigan. And, you know, the more I watch this team, that's why I've grown to have some more respect than what I previously did for them. Because, you know, it's just, they just win with their brand of football. And I respect that. You don't always have to be what everybody else is. And it's refreshing to see that. When you play Michigan, it's like playing a team from the 1970s to 1980s, where we're going to run it down your throat and we're going to give your ass a headache. So I think that Michigan has a great chance to repeat as Big Ten champions. And right now, to me, they look like the second best team in the Big Ten. Maybe they're better than Ohio State. You know, Ohio State hasn't played nobody. Really, I can't even say they're the second best team. I still got to say that they are the best team in the Big Ten. You know, like, until Ohio State can beat Michigan, I can't put them over them. I just can't. I got to see it to believe it. I believe it's going to happen this year, but Michigan, you know, it seemed like they were down and out, but they've gotten back to their identity, running the football, relying on great defense. They tried to throw it a little bit early into the season. They tried to experiment a little bit with Davis Warren, but they found out that doesn't work, and we need to get back to who we are. And that is being physical, having a great ground and pound, and that's their way of winning. And it really, listen, they may be the only team in college football that can win this way, but that's why they are who they are. Michigan football, people.